Today I'm going to talk about Weiss Schwarz from a player's perspective on grading, as well as the prices of some of these cards, and how slabbing up some of these cards affect players in a way where I kind of understand why some people get upset about it. So far up until this point, I would say most of my videos revolve mostly around talking about the investing and from a collector standpoint of just like, I enjoy collecting my favorite characters. I like having them in my collection. I like having them in one touches, even if I don't play the decks myself. But as I kind of dive a little bit deeper into the rabbit hole and actually playing the game myself, I'm starting to understand a little more as to why a lot of people get upset when a lot of their favorite cards are slabbed up. And I'm going to use Fate Zero as an example, and I'm choosing Fate Zero because I'm already building the deck and I've already like pretty much, accepted that I won't be able to max rarity my deck, and I'll show you which cards I want. So let's just say the King of All Creation Archer, for example, right? So I want to run... There's no secret. I really, really like Gilgamesh. If I wanted to run 4 copies of these, people are selling them for $500 to $800. I would assume all the cheaper ones that were like $200, $300 or whatever it was got all bought up, and people are slabbing it up. So even if I wanted to run this as max rarity, if I needed 2 more copies of this, it would be pretty much impossible to find without paying like almost $2,000 just to run 2 more copies of these. And you have other examples like, the Ridden Archer, like the double rare is really, really good, which is why it's like $70. And then like the SR is like $200, right? And even like Knight's Oath Saver, for example, is like $30, $40. But it comes into the talk about how people try to relate, okay, the price of certain cards is, they try to justify as like $800-$900. This is the SP card that's $800-$900 because this is the chase card, because it's the playability, which is what makes it expensive. But since it's playable, it's expensive. That's why they're gonna make it a slabbed up card, and that's where the value is, which kind of goes into play as to why it kind of contradicts itself. And what do I mean by it's contradictory, right? For example, like, okay, if I want to run these 2 Gilgameshes in my deck itself, I could put it in a one touch, but if I really wanted to run it, right, I could just take it out of the one touches and just put it into my deck, and then rather than running the double rare, for example, right? An interesting tidbit for the older sets, actually, for double rares, is actually not foils, as opposed to newer sets afterwards where double rares are actually have foiling on them. I guess that's just something to do with like older Weiss cards. But let's say if I wanted to run this, I could take it out of the one touch and put it into my deck. Whereas if someone were to slab it up, then the only other way is to just break it open, or outside of that, right, someone already jacked up the price by like times like 10 times 15 times 20 for a card that I want to play. I don't even want to have it graded or protected or whatever it is, right? Because after playing this myself, like, okay, would I want to run a regular Gate of Babylon Gilgamesh, or would I want to have it fully foiled out and have max rarity and run the super rare version of it? I would want to run 4 copies of this Gate of Babylon, but all the super rares are pretty much sold out, and I don't know if people bought it just to grade it. So if probably not, right? But people, it's sold out. But in the case that a card is already old and limited, if I wanted to run a deck of it, it's impossible because someone bought it out and decided to grade these things. So I kind of start to understand why people get angry over the fact that things are getting slabbed up. And again, going back to the fact that from a player's perspective, it doesn't make sense, right? So if you're telling me from a player's perspective that, okay, these signed cards are playable, which is why it makes the price go high, whatever, right? $800-$900. And then you're going to say that because the price is high, that's why you're going to grade it for the premium to sell it for times 15 times 20 the price. How does that make sense? Because the people that actually want these cards because it's playable, which is why it's expensive, right? How are they going to play it if it's getting slabbed up and getting jacked up to times 20 the price? And they're not the market for these graded slabs, right? In general, it's probably the market is mostly for the people that are collecting. But if you're collecting, the people that collect, do they really care about the playability of the card? So the relationship between the price, the rarity, and the playability, it just doesn't connect, and it just doesn't make sense to me the more I play the game and the more I think about collecting, investing, and being from a player standpoint as well. And this doesn't even go, solely with these older sets, right? This goes even with like newer sets, for example. All the newer sets, all the SPs are pretty much being marketed as, okay, it's gonna be $800-900 or $1,200 because it's part of a playable deck. But again, how does that make sense if the people that are playing it that want to run Max Rarity are not the ones that are gonna want to grade it anyways and want it in a slab? They want it inside their decks. Then who would actually pay? Let's say like if it's $1,000 each, who would want to pay $4,000 just to run the max rarity of a level 3, for example, or a level 0, which is the most common case? Like, I don't think there's really level 2s. It's mostly like 3 zeros and 1s. But who would pay 4K just to run one play set of one character? And that's not even talking about the rest of your deck, right? So if I'm running, in this case, in this deck, I only need the archers. But in certain other decks, you might be running 2 level 3s. And the level 1s might have, SP versions as well. And outside of my Fate deck, I'll give another example of like even a set that nobody wants, right? So if I wanted to run the secret rare version of Mob Explosion, I wouldn't be able to because they're just pretty much all sold out and people are grading them. So previously they were like what, $200-300 or whatever it is, and then like $200-300, whatever, right? And then if you wanted to run like 2-3 copies of this, you could if you want to for $200-300, and you could get like a whole playset, like, or even $400-500, you could get 2 of them, right? But since everyone's grading all these mob explosions, if you wanted to run these mob explosions, you wouldn't be able to because all of them are pretty much in slabs. And if you wanted to play max rarity, you wouldn't be able to. And again, it kind of goes back to the point that the people that want to run max rarity are the players, which again ties into how do the prices make sense for you to times 15 the price and slab it up if the people that want it, and the price why it should be high is because it's playable, right? And if it's playable, they want to play it. Why would they want it inside slabs? So I guess going back to like, I know it's more popular now that people are running like, they're grading triple rares or SRs now, which over the long term, I feel like it kind of wouldn't really make sense, especially for a lot of players, since most of Weiss, I would say, the people that really, really desire and become like full degenerates for most of these cards are the people that actually play it, and they want to buy multiple copies of these. They want a whole play set of these because they want to play these in like their max rate. Like, I want a triple rare version of this as opposed to, a regular climax version of this, right? And it just, I really think it's, as the more I play, I realize, like, when you want these like full rarity deck version of this, I understand more and more why a huge part of player base is very, very, very against grading. And, I understand it completely now, even more so than I did before, as I realized, what, if a card is playable, especially if a set is older defined, I really don't know long term how sustainable some of these prices are for some of these cards, because especially with how the prices are trending with the new sets, if people want to play it, they just want to play it, right? But if you're telling me that the logic behind it is the fact that this card is playable, which is why the price is so high on it when it's graded, then the logic is kind of flawed. But it's just a topic that I kind of really wanted to touch on. as I'm building my decks, as I'm, trying to find a higher rarity versions of it. And I realize a lot of the cards that I want, like the fake cards, for example, a lot of them are pretty much getting slabbed up or pretty much just getting bought out just purely for investment rather than people wanting to play the decks. And again, going back to like the part where, when I was opening the trial decks for Fate Grand Order, there's so many nice people out there in the community that are willing to just like, they know that you're playing these cards and they're willing to help out. But like for everyone, and every one of those, there's like 10 others that are just like, just investing and just trying to sell you something at like times 20 the price, just for the sake that they know, okay, there's not a lot of these out there. But yeah, as I was building my decks, I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts and opinions on this from a different perspective, because I know that it's a really big mix of the people that watch my videos, right? I know you guys, there's a lot of you guys that talk to me and reach out to me, and there's some people that are collectors, there's some people that are investing purely and they don't play the game, which is okay. And then there's people that, play the game solely, and they if you play the game, then you probably collect as well too. So there's the collectors and the investors, and then there's players and collectors, like different categories, right? Because there's some people that just purely collect, and then there's some people that purely collect and don't, grade their cards as well too. But it's just something to consider that, you have to understand why people are upset, and then you want to understand every single viewpoint, because if you're someone that, okay, if in the case that you're someone that's investing, you also want to know why some cards are more expensive than others. Not so because like, oh, okay, it's a popular character and that's why it's expensive, right? It's because, it's a core of a deck and it's something that might be playable, which in the case that something is expensive because it's playable, if you're already slabbing it up, then would it really demand the price for someone that's a player rather than people that are purely investing? Because in the case that if it's expensive and people only pay this price because it's expensive, and the people that are only interested in the slab cards are the people that are investing, then how far can that market go and how sustainable is that market? It's just something to consider as well too, which I found kind of interesting, because I pretty much gave up on the fact that I'm going to be able to run a full rare Max Rarity Archer deck, because I know it's impossible for me to find, let's see, like 3 more copies of the super rare, the SR Gate of Babylon. There's someone selling on eBay for $200, and then there's none on TCG Player. So unless I crack like a bunch of Unlimited Blade Work 2 boxes, or I get really, really, really lucky, I have a box like behind me. If I get really, really lucky in that, and I buy like the Maester sets, which are $200-$300, then there's no way it won't make sense for me to ever try to get 3 more copies of this. And then I'm pretty much just forced to run the double rare version of the King of Creation, because there's pretty much no way that I'm going to find 2 more copies of this, and I'm not really sure I would want to pay like 800 to 1,000 per copy of these things, when previously they were like $300 prior to people buying them up just to grade them. So I guess, like, from a player standpoint, would I be upset the fact that people are taking these and grading these? Kind of, but I kind of get it as well too, where like, okay, if I'm not going to learn Max Rarity and I have these 2 cards, would I be opposed to grading these in the future and just, having them in my collection? No, I don't think I would be opposed to doing so, but it's just something to consider, right? Because, it's for not even in just Weiss alone, I would say, like, in all card games, running Max Rarity is a very, very, very popular thing, and a lot of people they want to bling out their decks. Not even like blinging out your deck and having the most expensive cards, right? You even want to buy like, character sleeves and protect the sleeves. So I get all sides of the conversation, but it's just something interesting to think about, and I just kind of wanted to share it as I kind of piece together a lot of this stuff. And as I played more, and I really, really, really enjoyed a game that I could build a deck around my favorite characters. I could run climaxes like, the Gate of Babylon, and the effect is pretty much the effect of these cards are pretty much exactly like the animes itself, where if I play, certain cards like Sword of Rupture, you do a lot of damage. If I play Endless Blades Gilgamesh, I do 1 damage at a time when I do the damage, and it's almost exactly like as if I was, playing a Gilgamesh and he was throwing the blades at someone. It might not be like the most optimal deck, but it's really, really, really fun to play. And I really, really enjoy that aspect of it. At some point, I might actually do a tutorial on the game. I'm probably gonna be away for a little bit. I do have videos coming up, but I might be away for a little bit, and then I guess when I come back, I'll probably do a tutorial on the game just to kind of break it down so it's a lot easier. Because Weiss as a game, it's pretty complicated on how it's described, and if you read the instructions, you're just kind of like, what the hell's going on? And I think it could be a lot simpler if someone just made like a really like a dumbed down version of it so everyone can understand. But yeah, this is just kind of like my video on just kind of rambling about, I guess, being upset that a lot of these Gilgamesh cards are so expensive. But that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about this. Take care. Oh, just to kind of edit in, I actually completely remembered the card wrong. For the King of All Creation, actually, it's actually if I dump my my Aya from my hand, it actually I could remove his climax into their waiting room, and then I get 5,500 power at the end of the turn. So that's actually the effect of it. Just to kind of let you guys know. All right, take care.